Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of The Doc is In. Um, this episode is one that's kind of difficult to do because it has so much around it that it's going to be kind of hard to condense it, but I'll do my best. Today's episode is titled Black in America. Um, I am a man of color. And I'm sure you saw that. And if you didn't, you're blind. So I'm a man of color, and I grew up again in a small southern town where I did my best to never see color. But it seems like being in America tends to constantly remind you of color. Um, I read articles all the time where people are, slamming people for being in interracial relationships, or unfortunately, our current president tends to be very xenophobic, constantly pointing out race or socioeconomic status or something, and finding reasons to divide us. Um, I was always a kid who was interested in history, so being able to understand what happened to people of color in the last 100, 2, 3, 4, 500 years is it's really infuriating in a way, because you often hear people say things that are very racially motivated. And they'll say, oh, well, get over it, whatever. And it's hard to get over injustice. I became a social worker because I believe in fairness. I believe in people being able to have an equal opportunity and have a real chance at success. I believe that people have a right to live a good life. Maybe it's not, and when I say good, remember that good is subjective. When I say good, I mean good for them. Um, I believe that people have a right to live a good life, man. And, when my life doesn't really affect you, I don't understand why you're so against it, you know? One of my earliest memories of race really playing a part, I remember like through pre-K, I went to a private school. I went to private school for pre-K only, and then I went to a public school. But I remember it was a Catholic school. I was like maybe one of four black kids in the class, and it never really fazed me. I mean, I made friends. I did sleepovers. I did all that good stuff, and it was cool. And when I went to public school, one of my friends from Catholic school also transferred to public school. And I remember I used to go to his house for sleepovers. And his mom was cool, his dad was cool. It was always a very awesome time, no issues. Well, like one week in particular, we had a sleepover, and they had like a computer area that was like off the kitchen. So we were on the computer looking at like wrestling something. It was like back then, you didn't have cell phones that all your stuff came to. So we were like looking at wrestling news on AOL, which shows you how long ago this was because that was dial up. So we were looking at wrestling stuff, and I believe it was like his uncle came in the house. So he didn't know that I was there, and he was talking to my friend's dad. And so they were having a conversation, and the uncle said some things, and he said the N word. And I think for me, that was the first time I'd heard a white person use the N word. And I was like, oh snap, like he just dropped that like nothing. And I think his dad kind of corrected the uncle quietly, like, no, like, don't say that. And it was probably because I was there. Um, my issue is, it's like, I hated the way I felt in that moment because I felt like I should have said something, but I didn't know what I should be saying. I felt like, as a race of people, I was bearing the brunt of our being demeaned, and I did not know how to defend it. As I've gotten older, I recognize that that type of prejudice is really just ignorance. It's ignorance to a group of people. It's ignorance to a type of person or anything like that. And I feel like for as much as America is this awesome and amazing place to be, are so deeply rooted in segregation and bias that it's hard for us to really move forward. You know, when Barack Obama became president, everybody had like this very idyllic thing of like, oh, you know, we're going to finally move past a lot of the vestiges of racism. But it's like, no, we really didn't, because all we did was see it now amplified as there was like white lash taking place where you had people disrespecting the president in just the most, you know, overt ways, and people saying things about this man. And, you know, he has to be you know, a beacon of pride and a beacon of class, and he has to rise above all that. But I feel that it's so unfair because now, you know, we have a president who basically touts that and encourages that in people. Um, it's really a difficult pill to swallow when, as a man of color, you work and you do your best to, you know, be the best version of you can be. And then you go in a store to buy something and you're noticing people are like following you or constantly watching you while you shop. You know, it's like, I just want to go into a store and not start a parade. You know, um, one of the places that I felt so at home has been Canada. I frequently visit there. And I've gone back almost every year since the first year I went back in like 2011. Canada to me seems so accepting because it seems like everyone there is not really a Canadian native. They're usually an implant from somewhere else. And so everyone is just so accepting. And, you know, I've walked into restaurants and stores where I may be the only black person in there, the only person of color in there, and I'm just welcomed. Like, and I don't know if that's the whole like Canadians are nice thing or if that's just a different vibe altogether, but it's really refreshing to not notice color when you're somewhere. I don't like the feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm the only, you know, person of color, I'm the only black person in here. Like, and you feel this weirdness, like everyone's looking at you. And some of it is perceived and some of it is actual. But I just always think that, you know, we as a country really still have a far way to go. For as much as we're a melting pot and a beacon of liberty and hope, it's kind of like we have to really be careful that we don't put people in positions to make decisions who don't really value that, who don't really value diversity, who don't really try to empathize with those that may not be in their same socioeconomic class. Being black in America is a very interesting experience because you come to realize that despite this country being built on the free labor and on the backs of people who largely never wanted to be here in the first place, we're still in a lot of ways treated as the other. This month is Black History Month. And honestly, I can't tell you that I'm super in favor of Black History Month. There's no White History Month. You know, my history is American history. Black history is American history. If we were never here, who's going to build this place? Certainly not the folks who landed at Plymouth Rock. Um, yeah, because once the Indians pieced out, they had no clue what to do. So I have to ask, why should my history be relegated to 1 month? My history is American history and it should be studied all year. I stand on the backs of men and women who were fearless and brave and bold and hardworking and absolutely and utterly phenomenal. I am able to have the opportunities that I have because they worked the way they worked and they were treated the way they were treated. You know, when time comes to vote, and this is for every person of color, every minority person out there, every whatever, vote. Your vote does matter. Don't let the media con you into believing that your vote does not matter. Things have happened all because people believed that what they felt did not matter. Your vote counts. And for all of those of us who are in the minority, please remember something. Your vote was paid for with blood. Your vote literally has blood on it. And you do your ancestors a disservice when you don't make your voice heard. So I'm telling everybody, public service announcement. It could be for Black History Month. It could be for whatever you want it to be. Register to vote. Go out and make your voices heard. Remember, you can complain and work on it, or you can shut up and do nothing. You don't get the right to do both. Make your voice heard and make your vote count. I love you guys. Love yourselves. Love someone else. We'll all be better for it.